forward. Thank goodness women are no longer suppressed in that way. They can speak. There's, in 3 days, this guy, Harvey Weinstein, was brought down. The minute, there's, I saw on the BBC, there's a campaign on Twitter. It's down as #MeToo, women who have been abused. And then you think, wow, this is very encouraging because it gives a voice to say, look, this is not acceptable. And then they were on the news, they were reporting a guy in Lewisham going around grabbing women, and basically sexually assaulting women. So you think, and he's doing it in daytime as well. And you wonder that, what is it? I know them. I know there are mentally ill people. But I always wonder that, why are mentally ill people always drawn to do the worst? When you hear, you think it's almost like this sort of a paradox of someone decides to shoot someone and then they claim insanity. Like this guy. Imagine if the guy who did the Las Vegas shooting. Imagine if he'd been caught. He'd been found alive and had shot himself. You can bet somehow if there was a lawyer out there or someone who was stupid enough to represent him, they will try and plead the insanity card for him. And then you think, there's this thing of people who go crazy and outrageous and basically find themselves in abusive, in situations that are just beyond, or such as subhuman expectation, beyond human expectation, or below human expectation. They play that card. Sorry, I was mentally ill. I was I wasn't responsible. You think, so do all mental people do? Is that what mental things do to you? The mental state does to you. It gives you the edge to be able to plan and attack meticulously, to actually carry out, fine detail of doing this and that. It's amazing. I often think some of these self-diagnosis or these things, they seem to work out. They work out for that moment. They somehow fit that bill, or it depends who's I suppose releasing this diagnosis. I've got this. And you think, really? Yeah. But I'm not going to be. I don't want to offend anybody. As I said, it's always made sort of got me thinking, because I've seen that a lot. But I can't wait to see what this Harvey Weinstein sort of saga got. Ends up sort of concluding, whether he'll go to trial, whether he'll be arrested and trialed, and see what he has to say, because at the moment he's denying all claims that are lodged against him. But I mentioned that, as I said, I want just to go back to my point, that this is an opportunity to reshuffle, to improve the male man. Women are doing well, and I'm so glad of what's happening in the female sphere. They are coming up, they're getting stronger. The male has to be reassessed as well. Bring the male back to the table. Not to forget the male, because otherwise there are things happening that, as I said, I have a son, and I think asks me questions and he wants to know. The worst thing is, I say he wants to know because he asks questions, and you think if you're not ready, if you're not prepared, you can quite easily mask them. I mean, there's another podcast that I'm listening to, Lewis Howey. He's just released a book called The Mask of Masculinity, and I'm going to buy that book because I kept thinking there's an expectation about men, about the male. I said, men. There's an expectation, and men seem to wear they wear it so well, but with that, their things sort of uncovered, and they witness a lot of things, and they go unchecked. Who knows if these things play into, they lead men astray and end up doing things that are deplorable by social standards, and there's so much uncovered. I love the idea that the lid's been sort of blown off, or to uncover how females have sort of been oppressed and depressed and what's happening. But sometimes I worry. I think these gender Olympics where women sort of I think sometimes I think the feminism sort of drive this so well. They bring up sort of how they've been victimized, and then men try to respond, and it never goes nowhere. But the best, I think the best argument to put forward is when you argue for mankind. I say that in plural. Yeah, I'm talking about, when I say mankind, I'm talking about men and women. And when I say that, because I hold a view that, well, as I said, we're all different externally, but internally, we are equal. We are equal. Now, of course, I am very aware that that comes down to beliefs and philosophy. For me to say we are equal, I am saying that I know everybody has a philosophical view, a belief, a standard that they hold dear to their heart, that drives them. Everybody has that. The prostitute has a philosophy. The engineer has a philosophy. The singer, the musician has a philosophy. The dancer, the doctor, the nurse, the teacher. That cab driver has a philosophy. There's the athlete. The midwife has a philosophy. The mother, the boxer, everybody has a philosophy. Okay? And it makes me wonder, I wonder whether people know this, but that philosophy you hold, it's, of course, one that shows up in culture, it shows up in attitude, a lot of that. It's interesting that what I discovered a long time ago, that what changed with this slavery stuff is the philosophy changed in people, and as it came a bit closer to being universalized, slavery started to dissolve. And then you think, of course there are these race wars where some organizations decide to use race bait, they race bait other races and stuff like that. And you look at that, of course, like I said, I know externally we're different. Yeah, we have different colors, different ages, different groups, different heights, etc., etc. But there is the only chance we can be equal is internally, and that's, as I said, philosophy, beliefs. As I said, this shows up in culture, in traditions, etc. And of course, you see this now. It's quite evident. You have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Hindus, and you think, okay, everybody prays with God. But of course, there are differences in each religion. But then you think, wow, which one's better? And then you think, is that really a question to be answered? Anybody asking that question, are they, what's their angle? What's their purpose? Where are they coming from with that? Do you have the right as a Christian to go into the Muslim world and start asking whether their religion is better? Does a Muslim have the right to come into the Christian religion and start asking who's better? Does the Christian have a right to go into the Hindu religion and start asking who's better? Does the Hindu have it? And so forth. Because you look at it, as it shows up in different ways. But when you realise, there's more to the face, there's more to this external shell, the body. Okay, there's that opportunity to be equal, which is the spirit. Obviously, the container for your philosophy, your beliefs. I keep repeating this because I'm trying to drive it home. But when you look at that, you think, wow. So this social phenomenon of what's happening with women becoming more vocal and having a spotlight on them. Something's changed internally, and that's a good thing. But I'm concerned that the male is could well easily be suppressed. Could well easily, because there's a lot. There's a view that men have sort of bought into a long time. Be strong, basically be tough. All of this stuff, yeah. And that stuff gets you in trouble. It gets you in trouble because you start to think physical strength is what really you should be displaying to a female. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but there is that element. I mean, a lot of men. How many times have I seen men deciding to or failing to inquire or to sort of failing to assess their potential partner? Okay, failing to assess the situation, failing to assess whether the opposite sex is interested in them, or failing to assess the situation and make a dumb decision simply because they've been, they've picked up, or shall I say, there's a streak of ignorance that's been passed down, and they've just gone and run with the baton as a relay race, and it's landed them in trouble, obviously. But there's an opportunity. There's a new opportunity, because as I said, I hold the belief that opportunity where we can be equal, where what's happening to women now, men can also come up and say, look, okay, this is wonderful. Let us support this beautiful image of a female, so it has a voice. It's loud and very clear, and then see how the male fits in with this newfound voice. Because, as I said, a lot of men are coming from a world where women were quiet. Women were quiet, and men thought this was the way. But I understand. The way I look at it is, my gosh, I want my daughter to be loud, very clear in her delivery, in her words, in her assessment, in her speech. Her intent must be heard. I want nothing below. I have nothing different for my son. He has to be loud. He has to be clear in his delivery. The intent of his actions must be very clear. And I think, why was that so hard? What happened to the female? Why was that allowed to prevail for so long? And then I think, oh my gosh, because the pendulum swings around. What normally happens is once one gender takes a head, and then the other gender becomes a victim. And that's not something I would want to see for my children.